morning, everybody. Thank you for joining. Today, we're going to be discussing how to manage users and groups easily using policies. From within these topics, we're going to be talking about user policies and their capabilities, users and group restrictions, AD users, group policies, and centralized device management. Now, during these options, we're going to be looking at a lot of capabilities. Please feel free to write down your questions on the chat as we go. At the end of the session, there's going to be a 5 to 10 QA time frame so we can answer all of them. So, moving forward, looking at this environment, when we discuss about users and groups, there's a very easy way to manage them directly through our user policies. The user policies can be accessed by going into Settings, from the admin portal, Policies. From here, you can easily create a policy just by adding the name and creating it. But what is really a policy? A policy is really a set of regulations, restrictions, or permissions that you predefine for a specific user or user group. Now, I've created two policies here to give us an example. So for example, the production user policy. If you look at the production user policy, I'm telling it, hey, every user that has access to this policy will only have 1 GB of storage quota. That means that they cannot go above that. Sharing is not allowed from within this policy. I have disabled the user invitation, for example. I have not enabled them to do new accounts or anything. And if I go into centralized device management, I'm telling them, hey, when the user logs in with FileCloud Drive, I want the mount point to be X. So what does this really mean? This means that when somebody tries to actually open up FileCloud Drive, which is our desktop client, it will automatically mount to letter X. Furthermore, I have disabled the auto login, meaning that every time the user logs in, they will be required to log in over and over again. Now, with that said, once you create the user policy, like in this case I have, you can either add a group, you can either add a user, like I'm doing here, or you can easily just add a group. Either or, it works just fine. So once you do that, all of the restrictions that you have in place for this user will actually apply based on his policy restrictions. So if we now go into a user website, for example, now we're to log in with my demo user. And I go over the settings, right? The first thing that I see is the amount of storage space that I have left. So for example, you see that in here, now I have 1 gig. Because as in the policy, I only have 1 GB of storage space. Now, if I went into any folder, for example, and let's say I will try to do a share, sharing has been disabled by the admin, meaning that my user cannot share because it's not part of my policies, right? But let's say I go back into the admin portal and I change my team user policy and I want to remove my user from such policy. I'm going to add my user to my admin user policy. Now, the admin user policy has about 10 gigs of storage space available. They can do whatever they want inside of it. They are allowed to share and everything they want. That being said, I'm going to add my user now to my admin policy. I'm going to run a quick refresh here just to refresh the whole browser, pick up those new rules. And now if I try to do a share, I can do my share without any inconvenience. The system is not blocking me. If we go into settings, I see that I have a total of 10 gigs of personal storage space available. So what are the benefits right here, right? Instead of having you set this up user by user, I mean, going into each one of them and setting up all of this requirements and all of the storage space available, you can easily just create them as a group or individual users and then just set a policy for them. Right. Now let's talk a little bit about what would happen. Now this is for FileCloud users, but what would happen for an Active Directory group? right? And how do you control it? And which policies do apply to them? Well, this is a very easy one. To give you an idea, this FileCloud admin groups is actually part of the AD group that I have imported. If I do import right now, it will search for my Active Directory and it will be able to pull that out. Now, that being said, these users are all being picked up from the AD automatically based on the cron job. Now, if I wanted to do group policy, I can set a specific policy, like let's say, you know what, this user are going to be admins. Give them the admin policy. Close. So now, in a very automated way, when the user is actually inputted from my Active Directory to my FileCloud group, automatically I'm telling it, hey, I want you to have this group policy, giving you this benefits. So if we go over it, managing this is very easy. Now that we understand the benefits that you have on how to use group policies or user policies, let's dive a little bit deeper into the central device management. I think that is something that you could really take some benefit out of. While we were here, we actually hovered over this configuration. This is called centralized device management. And what is centralized device management? So centralized device management pretty much is FileCloud's proprietary system on how can you actually have pre-configured settings for your different capabilities, right? So in this scenario, if we were to manage our devices, you can say, hey, you know what? I want FileCloud Drive to have very specific capabilities, like I just did right now. You can easily program this from the web portal so that when the FileCloud user tries to access through Drive, there's some automated features like, hey, I want you to mount to point H. I want you to do this. I want you to look for an update. I want you to change the cache location. I want to change the create language to French. The moment the user tries to log in, all of those rules are going to be applied immediately as soon as the user tries to connect to the server based on his policy. So to give you a better idea on how this would work, I'm just going to copy this rule from this policy. And I don't know if you recall, but we have added the admin group into this policy. So I'm going to go ahead here and, oops, just give me a minute. There we go. And I'm going to paste this here. I'm going to say, okay, you know what? Every time somebody connects, I want the mount point to be X. I'm going to save this up. And I'm going to open my dashboard and we're going to log out of this. Perfect. So right now it's hanging on the E drive, right? So I'm going to try to log in to it. Still on the E drive. Click on sign in. So at this point, a couple of options are happening, right? Immediately, as you can see, I had told it, hey, I want you to be on the E drive, but it mounted on the X drive. The reason it mounted on the X drive is because I have a centralized device management configuration that I'm telling it, hey, I want you to actually go to the X drive. There's a lot of things you can do with centralized device management to automatically control your system. Like for example, changing if you want them to be able to lock it, if you want them to be able to log in a different way. And this not only applies to Drive, but it applies to almost all of our desktop clients, even our mobile clients that you can control. Now, besides having this capability from the centralized device management, another thing that you could also do is going into the devices, and from the devices, on manage devices, you can actually see that I just logged in. This is my user, I just logged in from here. You can do a couple of things, like if you want to block the user and remote wipe, this will not wipe the Windows data, it will only wipe the data related to FileCloud on the FileCloud client itself, and it will prevent the user from logging in. If you want to be able, for example, to pull the log files, you can easily make a request to get those logs, and then on the system, those logs will get generated, and then you're going to be able to actually go ahead and see them. For example, in here, I've sent a request to view the logs. But in here now you can see apply configuration, apply from client configuration policy, which is pretty much the configuration I'm telling it, hey, I want you to mount to X. In this case, I'm telling it, hey, I want you to get your user logs. So now this created actually a folder called demo user client logs in case I wanted to see the logs from my system. This is mostly just because if a user ever has trouble sending you log files or they just really don't know where they are, where this is, you can easily get that from them. As soon as the logs are generated, you're going to be able to see them here. Now, going back, we have covered a bit of things today, right? We've covered user policies and the capabilities it has, the user groups and restrictions. This was more towards allowing to share, not share 1 gig storage space versus 10 gig storage space. How can you import the user groups and apply policies in a centralized device management? At this point, I'm going to leave a 5 to 10 minute QA opening. Please feel free to ask your questions, right? Or if you want to review something a little bit more detailed, also do let me know. Yeah, I'll be looking out for the chat for your questions. That is a great question. Do the Active Directory groups sync automatically when I add a new user? Well, there are 2 things to keep in mind here. When you're having your AD integration with a group, this is running on a cron job. Usually the policy is that every 12 hours, it is going to be updated automatically, especially in this group, for example. But in case that you wanted to have it a little bit done faster, you can easily do it just by clicking on update. That will immediately create the pool and update your users. But if you go back into the manage members, it's just a matter of checking the checkboxes. Automatic sync, remove members automatically, and disable the members automatically. It does it all based on the cron job, but yes. Okay, is there any other questions? Okay, so quick start out, guys, will be emailed to you, everybody that attended. If you need help, please feel free to contact support team at support@coldlathe.com. Once again, that is support@coldlathe.com. Our team will gladly be able to assist you. Just give them a small description of what is that you need assistance with or the issue they're experiencing, and they will be able to provide you with assistance. Or visit our documentation at getfilecloud.com/support docs. That will be getfilecloud.com/support docs. Once again, I really appreciate everybody's time and joining this webinar, and you have a beautiful day. Goodbye.